I was 19 and I was living in France. Wow, I was in France. I was there because my dad was in the military and he had been transferred to Orleans, France. And we as a family followed him. So there we were going to be for 2 years. I was young, I was spirited, and I was full of dreams and ideas for adventures. The only obstacle was I had to get rid of this family. The youngest was 1, and he was very much a brat. And then they ranged all the way up to me. I'm from a large Catholic Irish family, and as loving and as fun as they are, they had their issues with control. I could not shave my legs, nor could I wear pierced earrings. I know that's hard to believe these days, but those were the biggies. And I had to go to Mass every Sunday, all of us, in line of order of age. We went daily during Lent. We had to make our beds before we came down for breakfast. We never sassed our parents, and we believed every authority figure. We never questioned anything. So now I know things have changed. I now find myself in France. Things are going to change. I'm going to get out on my own. I am going to live the dream. You know, here I come world. So I got a job on the U.S. Army base as a clerk typist, and I bought the most adorable putrid green VW Beetle. I loved that car. I learned how to shift. Oh my God, it was so cool. Now I had the means and the wheels to move out. When I told my parents I was going to move to the BWQ, which stands for Bachelor Women's Quarters, my mother almost fainted. You know, in her experience, young girls never left their family unless they were getting married. You know, my dad, I think, was relieved to have, you know, an extra mouth he didn't have to feed, you know. So I didn't care what they thought. I just packed my bags, got in my adorable car, drove off to the French countryside. The BWQ was on one side. Right across the way was the BOQ, which is Bachelor Officers' Quarters. Down the way in walking distance was the Officers' Club, the tennis courts, and the carriage house. Sometimes British bands came to perform at the carriage house. It was party, party, party. The booze was unbelievably cheap, and there was plenty of men. Remember, I was 19, and it was the 60s, you know? I was having the time of my life. I never wanted it to end. I met a wide assortment of people from various backgrounds. One day at the Army cafeteria, I met this young woman who was obviously a hippie. She had the long flowing skirt, the long straight hair, and an air of freedom about her. We got to chatting. She told me all about her hitchhiking tales through Europe, and she told me she was going to go, when she returned to the States, to work on an Indian reservation. Wow. Boy, that was really wonderful. You know, a meaningful job with purpose, and it was also going to be in the Wild West. You know, there were going to be adventures. So I sort of tucked it away. It was about that time that President of France, Charles de Gaulle, demanded that all the American troops leave France. So my family and the troops headed to Germany. When, on the other hand, I decided that I was going to return to the States, to the D.C. area. I think down in my soul I knew I'd had enough of the partying. Now I wish I could get those party days back. But anyway, I'd had enough. I was going to reform, and I was going to live the good life, and I was going to be responsible. So I caught a plane in Frankfurt, Germany. And as I was boarding the plane, these were big Army planes. They're not glamorous at all. They're that horrible color green. And I noticed when they gave me my seat, the seats were facing backwards. So I look out the window, and there's all these ambulances coming up. I look in the back, and they are loading wounded American GI soldiers onto the plane into white hammock-like beds that are layered bunk style, about 9 to each side. I was not prepared for this. It was really gruesome. In fact, it was rather horrific. And I knew about the war. Obviously, I knew about the war. But I didn't, this was in my face. I'd heard stories from GIs that served over there, but maybe they glamorized it. I just was not expecting this. During the flight, the nurses would put a curtain over for privacy, but we could still hear the cries and the pitiful screams from these young boys. These young boys were my age. They had been serving in the rice paddies of Vietnam while I had been living the dream. I felt an immense sadness. I then land at National Airport in DC. My Uncle Bebe and Aunt Marie greet me. We went out for pizza. And over pizza, they started drilling me on what I was going to do when I grew up. And it was almost like that scene from The Graduate. You know, the one where the old men are saying, "Plastic's my boy, plastic's my boy," you know, to Dustin Hoffman. But instead to me it was government, get a job in the government, Julia. That is not what I wanted to do. I'd had enough of that. I wanted a fulfilling job. So I nervously told them about my plans to go out to the Southwest with my friend and work on an Indian reservation. Uncle Bebe almost hit the roof. You see, Uncle Bebe is a high-ranking official in the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I thought I was going to get some support from him. I didn't. He was livid. His face kept turning redder and redder. You cannot go out there. A young woman of your background cannot go out to an Indian reservation. I could not argue with him. So there I was, 2 years of living freedom, and I seemed to be going backwards. You know, I was now under this male authority figure. I then went to go live with my grandmother, my eccentric grandmother, in Annapolis. I didn't know what to do. I got a job at the Annapolis General Hospital, typing. I met on a blind date my soon-to-be husband. We met in October, we're married in April, very fast moving in the 60s, you know? A lot of thought was put into that. So, within a year's time, we're up in New Hampshire. I don't know if the Southwest would have changed the direction of my life or made any difference, but what I do know is I really would have appreciated being encouraged and given the time to decide for myself. Thank you.